The film opens in the heart of the Caribbean Sea, where a small family yacht drifts peacefully under the blazing sun. Tom, Julia, their teenage daughter Cassie, and their young son Ben are on a short vacation, enjoying the quiet stretch of open water far from land. For a moment, life seems simple, almost perfect. Julia steps toward the edge of the yacht and dives smoothly into the ocean. The water is warm, calm, and so clear she can see her own shadow rippling beneath her. She floats on her back, breathing slowly, letting the waves cradle her. But then something strange brushes against her, a faint, unsettling sensation, like a shift in the water or a presence drifting nearby. She glances around. The ocean is empty, peaceful, undisturbed. Maybe it was nothing, maybe just a fish. She tries to relax again, but the same eerie feeling returns, this time sharper, closer. She jolts upward, scanning the water. There's still nothing in sight, but her heartbeat climbs. She turns toward the yacht and starts swimming, and then something grabs her ankle. Julia's scream bursts from her throat, but the water splashes into her mouth and muffles it. She thrashes wildly, kicking at whatever is pulling her down. Panic surges through her as she fights to stay above water, but no one hears her. Cassie is sitting on the deck, headphones on, scrolling through music. Ben and Tom are focused on fishing off the back of the yacht, laughing at something Ben says. None of them notice the terror unfolding just yards away. Julia tries to cry out again, but water fills her mouth, choking off the sound. She barely manages to stay afloat. Her hands slap at the surface. Desperate, frantic. It takes a full minute before Tom looks toward the water and realizes Julia has been gone too long. Confusion, then dread. He rushes across the deck, scanning the waves, until he sees her head bobbing, disappearing, then reappearing. "Julia!" he shouts. Cassie tears off her headphones. Ben stands frozen. Tom swings the yacht toward Julia and leaps into the water. He reaches her just as she starts to slip beneath the surface. With one arm, he drags her close. With the other, he fights the pull of the mysterious force below. Somehow, he manages to bring her back to the yacht. The kids help pull Julia onto the deck, gasping and coughing. Shaken, terrified, uncertain of what just happened, Julia insists she's fine. She forces herself to believe it must have been the waves, or maybe a muscle cramp. Anything except the truth she doesn't want to admit. That night, the family gathers to celebrate Ben's birthday. They try to forget the frightening moment in the water. Cassie steps outside with her laptop when her boyfriend calls. During the video chat, he shows her the sky above the city, covered with thick, dark clouds swirling in unnatural patterns. Suddenly, the screen glitches. The call freezes. Cassie frowns and heads inside to tell her parents, but Tom brushes it off. "We're far from land. Signal's weak out here." Before anyone can say another word, a strange rumbling echoes across the ocean. They all step outside. A pod of whales glides past the yacht, massive, majestic, and eerily silent. Tom explains that whales follow Earth's magnetic fields, but when storms disrupt the field, they become confused and change course. Before they can take in the beauty of the moment, the yacht shudders violently. Ben falls onto the deck as the entire vessel jolts sideways. Tom suspects something may have hit the underside. He dives down to check. Minutes pass. When Tom resurfaces, he is pale, trembling, and bleeding. A deep gash stretches across his shoulder. Julia immediately tends to the wound. Tom insists he must have turned too quickly and struck the propeller, but he can't shake the feeling that something enormous was behind him in the water. Something he didn't see until it was too late. Something too big to be a fish. Damage beneath the yacht looks serious. They need help. Julia tries the radio repeatedly. Cassie searches for any cell signal. Nothing works. Then Cassie screams. She sees a distorted creature-like shape outside the window, but it's only Ben, wearing a scuba mask and goofing around. They try to calm down, but minutes later, all power shuts off. The yacht dies completely. They are stranded in open ocean. Julia tries the radio again. This time, a faint voice crackles through, but it's too broken to understand. Tom gathers the family. Their supplies are limited. Only 4 days of food and fresh water remain. They need rescue soon. Suddenly, the radar pings. Unfamiliar sounds start echoing from the distance. They step outside and stare at the horizon as streaks of blazing fire rain down from the sky. Objects crashing violently into the ocean and land far away. At first, they assume they're meteors. One slams into the water near them, sending up a massive splash that rocks the yacht. Tom forces the engine to respond, pushing it as much as he can, only to realize another object is falling toward the area. The family holds onto each other as an explosion erupts across the water. Tom suddenly understands they're not meteors, they're satellites. Ben notices smoke rising from the yacht's stern. Tom checks the engine. Burnt out. Useless. Winds begin to howl. The family retreats inside without noticing the compass spinning wildly, out of control. The yacht begins to shake violently. Ben falls again, this time hurting himself. Waves smash against the hull, tossing the vessel. Tom fights his way outside, grabs life jackets, and rushes back in. The lights flicker, then go out again. He slams the power switch. Lights flare back on. Ben sees blood dripping from Julia's nose. Tom keeps trying the radio, but nothing connects. A shrill, high-pitched vibration fills the yacht, so loud it rattles the windows. Wind intensifies intensifies, tearing at the structure. Julia tries to shut a hatch, but the force of the wind is overwhelming. Windows crack, wood splinters. Tom lights a flare. Darkness consumes everything. The storm rages for hours. When the family finally wakes the next morning, silence surrounds them. They survive, barely, but the yacht looks ruined, half destroyed. They step outside and freeze in shock. The ocean is gone. The yacht sits on dry land, the seabed exposed for miles, as if the sea has been pulled backward off the earth. Cassie checks her phone. Still no network. Ben wanders near some dead crabs, poking at them absent-mindedly. Tom checks the compass. It's reversed. This last happened 700,000 years ago, he whispered. Cassie breaks down, convinced her boyfriend must be dead. Julia reaches out to comfort her, but Cassie pushes her away and isolates herself. Julia and Tom inventory supplies. Ben ties his birthday balloons to a rock, hoping any survivor nearby might see them. Tom tries the radio again, and this time he connects. A man's voice responds. His name is now a submarine captain. His submarine is also stranded on land. He confirms Tom's worst fear. Earth's magnetic poles have reversed. Oceans have pulled back, exposing entire seafloors. Communication systems are collapsing everywhere. Now warns the family. The poles will reverse again. When the ocean returns, it will come back violently. They need to reach high ground or reach him before the sea crashes back. He also admits his partner died in the collapse, and the submarine only has room for 3 people. Julia and Tom beg him to save their children. Now agrees, giving coordinates to his location. It will take 2 to 3 days to reach him. Tom tells the family to rest. They leave at dawn. Morning comes quietly, heavy with dread. The sky is pale, washed out, strangely colorless. Another reminder that the world around them isn't normal anymore. The family gathers what little they have left. A few bottles of water, canned food, Tom's jacket, a flare gun, a map, and the small first aid kit. Every step feels heavier now, as if grief itself is pulling on their limbs. Tom steps outside the yacht to check the surroundings one last time before they leave, and that's when he sees something moving in the distance. A hunched figure limping toward them across the cracked seabed, dusty, bruised, exhausted. A dog follows beside him, barking sharply, almost aggressively. The man clutches a spear-like harpoon in one hand. He looks like he has been wandering for days. Lost, beaten, feral. Tom hesitates, then approaches slowly, raising one hand in peace. He offers the stranger a bottle of water. The man grabs it greedily, gulping it down in seconds, water spilling from the sides of his mouth. He mutters something in a language Tom can't understand. Broken, garbled words from a world Tom doesn't recognize. Tom tries to smile politely, then everything shatters. Without warning, the stranger smashes the empty bottle into Tom's face. Tom stumbles back, stunned. Before he can react, the man lunges and drives the harpoon straight into Tom's abdomen. Julia screams from the yacht. Cassie freezes, then covers his ears, unable to process what he's seeing. The man twists the harpoon deeper. Tom's breath catches, his eyes going wide with shock and pain. He collapses to his knees. The stranger then grabs Tom by the hair and slices across his throat. Julia runs, but the man is already coming after her. He throws the harpoon. It hits Julia's shoulder, cutting deep. She cries out, but forces herself to keep moving, sprinting back to the yacht with blood streaming down her arm. She slams the door shut behind her, locking it before the man reaches it. "Kids, hide," she gasps. Cassie and Ben crawl under the sofa. Julia hands them the flare gun. "Do not come out unless you have to." She grabs a kitchen knife and hides in the bathroom. Her breathing is ragged, panicked, but she tries to steady herself. The stranger's footsteps stomp across the deck. The door rattles violently as he tries to force his way in. Then the door breaks open. The man storms inside, grabbing food, sniffing around like an animal searching for prey. His dog sniffs under the furniture, growling. It's only a matter of time before he finds the kids. He heads toward the bathroom. Julia squeezes out through a small maintenance opening and slips outside just in time. She crouches low, trying to circle back to the other side of the yacht, but the dog sees her. It barks loudly and leaps at her. Julia reacts instinctively. She plunges the knife into its body. The dog drops with a whine. The man hears the cry. Furious, he rushes outside and sees his dog dead at Julia's feet. Rage fills his eyes. Julia scrambles to climb up toward a broken window, desperate to get back inside and reach her kids, but he's too fast. He grabs her ankle, yanks her backward, and slams his fist into her face. She crashes to the ground below. Dizzy, she tries to crawl away, but he kicks her in the ribs, flipping her onto her back. He traps her wrist with his foot, forcing her to drop the knife. Then he grabs her by the hair and slams her face into the deck floor. She groans in agony as he drags her toward the sofa. Underneath, the kids watch in silent horror. He wraps his hands around Julia's throat. Cassie can't take it anymore. She bursts out and fires the flare gun. The flare strikes the man directly in the chest. He erupts into flames. He screams, thrashing, stumbling backward as fire spreads across the yacht, igniting parts of the cabin. Cassie and Ben run for the exit. Julia, dazed, forces herself to her feet. The burning man collapses inside the yacht. Julia grabs the map and the supply bag, limping as she and the kids sprint away from the burning vessel. Behind them, their home, what little they had left, explodes in a fiery blast. The kids run to Tom's body, collapsing beside him. They cry uncontrollably, holding his cold, lifeless hand. Julia kneels beside them, tears falling silently. The three of them remain there for long minutes, grieving everything they have lost. Then a faint rustling sound makes Julia turn sharply. The stranger is alive, burnt, disfigured, barely standing, but alive. He stumbles from behind the yacht wreckage. The family begins to move again, heading across the dry seabed. After half an hour, exhaustion forces them to stop by a small waterfall, trickling from exposed rocks, the remnants of groundwater that once fed the ocean. Cassie looks back at the balloons tied to the rock. Maybe that's why he came. Maybe he saw those balloons. Ben's face breaks. I didn't mean no, Julia says quickly, pulling him close. This is not your fault. None of this is your fault. But they can't stay, because somewhere behind them, the stranger is still following. They push onward, climbing over reefs and dried formations. Suddenly, Ben stops. A dead hammerhead shark lies sprawled on the ground. Its body dried out, twisted, and cracked. Its eyes look like glass marbles. Before they can process what killed it, Julia glances back and sees the stranger far behind them. Slow, relentless, limping, but never stopping. They run again. They slide down a steep sand dune and land directly in a field of toxic waste. Rusted barrels, chemical spills, and mutated debris scattered across the exposed seafloor. The air feels poisonously hot. They step carefully, afraid every object might be hazardous. For a moment, it seems the stranger has lost their trail. They keep walking. Massive piles of dead sea creatures stretch across the horizon. Whales, sharks, dolphins, crabs, all dried and rotting under the sun. Plastic waste and decades-old ocean trash litter the landscape. It's like crossing a graveyard of the entire marine world. Ben slows down, wobbling. His lips crack. His skin is flushed. Julia touches his forehead, burning hot. Dehydration is setting in. Julia opens the water bottle and freezes. It's nearly empty. Cassie realizes she forgot to screw the cap on tight. The water leaked out overnight. They walk until they find a crashed airplane half buried in the ground. Its metal body is faded and torn, but it offers shade. Inside, the air is stale, but it's safer than the open. Something moves in the darkness. The family freezes, but it's only a cluster of birds nesting inside. They decide to stay for the night. They share a single small snack between them. Julia searches Tom's jacket and finds a photo of the four of them, smiling, happy, whole. She clutches it gently, tears filling her eyes. Cassie watches her. Mom, how did you and Dad fall in love? Julia smiles weakly. He was my patient once, and one day he showed up with flowers and a poem he wrote himself. For a brief moment, the world feels warm again, but night brings danger. Cassie steps outside to get some air. A hand grabs her from behind. The stranger again. His grip is tight, choking, relentless. But before he can overpower her, Julia bursts out of the plane and attacks him from behind. Rage fuels her strikes. She stabs him again and again and again. The stranger finally collapses, lifeless at last. Morning arrives with a suffocating stillness. Inside the crashed plane, Julia wakes first, her body aching, her mind still replaying last night's brutality. She steps outside into the harsh sunlight, only to freeze in place. The stranger's corpse is crawling with insects. Crabs, flies, and small scavengers swarm his burned flesh. But something else catches Julia's attention, something more disturbing than death. His body is covered in bite marks, fresh ones, deep ones, meaning something out here, something large, has been feeding. Julia steps back, heart pounding. The ocean floor is no longer empty. It's alive. Cassie emerges behind her, voice trembling. Mom, what is that on his shoulder? Julia looks closer. A massive claw mark cuts across the stranger's upper arm. Not from a crab, not from any creature she recognizes. They need to leave. Now, they gather their things. But when Julia calls Ben's name, there's no answer. Panic shoots through her as she scans the area. Ben, she shouts. Her eyes land on him just in time. He's kneeling by a small pool of water, lowering his face to drink. Ben, stop! Julia runs forward and yanks him away from the water's edge. You can't drink that. You don't know what's in it. Ben nods slowly, ashamed, but he's swaying. His legs are weak. The sun is relentless. His condition is getting worse. Julia pulls him close, scanning the barren landscape. With no water left and no shelter around, the hot air feels like it's burning through their skin. Cassie shields her eyes. Mom, look. Ahead of them, scattered across the ground, sit several faded plastic lawn chairs. Their frames rusted, toppled, half buried, left behind by some resort long ago, now swallowed by the dried ocean. Julia doesn't hesitate. She uses the chairs to build a makeshift shelter, laying shirts and cloth across them to create a patch of shade. She lowers Ben onto the ground and stabilizes him. Sweat drips down his face. His breathing is shallow. She digs through the first aid kit, pulls out an emergency injection, and steadies her shaking hands before piercing it into Ben's arm. Slowly, his breathing evens out. His eyes soften. He'll recover for now. We stay here tonight, Julia says. We move again in the morning. Cassie nods, silently agreeing, but rest doesn't last long. Julia wakes to a sound she can't immediately identify. Soft at first, like distant tapping, then louder, closer. A clicking, scraping noise that echoes across the barren landscape. She steps outside, and her blood turns to ice. A massive swarm of crabs, hundreds of them, is rushing toward the shelter. Their legs clatter violently against the hardened seafloor, moving in a wave of pincers and black shells. These are not normal crabs. They are oversized, aggressive, starving. They're coming straight for her children. The kids stumble to their feet, terror-filled, as the swarm swarm closes in. Julia grabs Ben's arm. Cassie grabs the supplies, and the three sprint across the sand as dozens of crabs snap at their heels. A massive cargo ship looms ahead, tilted sideways, stranded on the dry ocean floor like a fallen titan. They race toward it, climbing the metal hull as the crabs swarm the ground below. At the top of a container, 3 crew members peer down. One woman looks concerned. The 2 men behind her look hardened, distrustful. "We need help!" Julia shouts. "Please!" The woman steps forward. The men grab her shoulders and pull her back. One shakes his head. "Stay down there!" he yells. "We can't let anyone else in!" The woman hesitates, torn, but fear wins. She retreats inside. The container doors slam shut. Julia and the kids cling to the top as the crabs reach them. They climb over each other, screeching, clicking, eager to tear anything apart. One crab squeezes through a narrow hole in the metal, then another and another. Inside the container, the crew begins to fight. Gunshots blasting, screams follow, echoing, terrifying. Julia shields her children's eyes. Through a tiny opening, she sees a man dragged down, his gun falling from his hand. The second man tries climbing toward the roof, but crabs pull him down, tearing at his legs. He disappears under a wave of snapping claws. The woman reaches the roof opening, crying for help, and then she's pulled under too. A silence worse than the screams. Dozens of crabs now spill out of the container's broken seams, falling to the ground around Julia and the kids. The 3 sit frozen, unable to move until the swarm begins spreading outward again. But as the crabs leave, Julia gasps. She's bleeding again. The bite she received earlier has reopened. Her leg won't hold her weight. She collapses onto the metal surface. Her vision darkens. Julia tries to speak, but the words fade. Her head falls to the side, and everything goes black. She wakes with sand in her mouth. Wind whips across the desert-like seabed. The cargo ship is nowhere in sight. The crabs are gone. The sky is darker, dustier. Another storm is forming. Cassie is kneeling beside her. "Mom, we're okay, but we had to move. You passed out." Julia sits up, confused. Her leg throbs. Cassie explains that she and Ben dragged her away from the ship as best they could before the swarm circled back. Ben runs toward them from the distance. "I found something." Cassie helps Julia stand as Ben leads them to an open cargo container lying on its side. Inside is enough space for the 3 of them to take shelter from the rising storm. Julia grunts in pain as she lowers herself onto the metal floor. She reaches into Tom's jacket and pulls out his lighter. Her hands shake as she holds it near her injured leg. "Mom, what are you doing?" Cassie pleads. "I can't let this get infected." She ignites the flame. The burning metal touches her wound. Julia screams. Cassie covers Ben's ears, crying as she watches her mother's skin cauterize. But when the pain subsides, Julia exhales, alive, still fighting. Hours pass before the storm dies down. When they step outside, they find another overturned container. Inside are crates of sealed water bottles. A miracle. They drink carefully, rationing every sip. In another crate, they find bodies, crew members from a different shipwreck. The sight is grim, but as Julia checks their pockets, she finds 2 items that change everything: a radio and a pistol. She radios now. His voice crackles through. "I thought I lost you. What happened?" "We lost the map," Julia says. "We're having trouble navigating." Nao's tone grows urgent. "Listen carefully. The creatures that attacked us, they're arthropods, crabs, crustaceans, but something is wrong. Oxygen levels are unstable. They're mutating, becoming violent. They're losing their minds." Julia stares at the landscape, realizing the truth. The dried ocean has become their territory. "Julia," Nao continues, "you have to hurry. My instruments show the ocean returning sooner than expected. You only have a few hours." A flare shoots into the sky from a distant ridge. Nao's signal. They start walking toward it. After nearly an hour, Ben stops beside a piece of rubble, a broken toilet bowl resting awkwardly among rocks. "Mom," he says, "I gotta pee." Julia almost laughs. In the middle of apocalypse, some things never change. Ben finishes, and they keep moving, faster now. The flare's smoke trail leads them to the edge of a rocky canyon, and there, across a jagged stretch of stone, they see it. Nao's submarine, the final hope for survival. But between them and the submarine is a narrow, unstable passage of cliffs and boulders. They step onto the rocky path, but halfway through, the earth trembles. A deep rumble shakes the canyon walls. Rocks begin falling. Dust floods the air as a massive landslide erupts above them. She pushes her children forward. Boulders crash behind them, separating her from Cassie and Ben. A huge slab of rock slams down between them, blocking the path completely. Julia tries climbing, but the rock face is too steep. Her injured leg too weak. Julia pleads, "You keep Ben safe. You get to that submarine." The kids are sobbing, shaking, refusing to move. Cassie grabs Ben's hand and pulls him toward the submarine. Julia touches the rock wall, whispering to herself, "I'll be right behind them." To herself, Cassie and Ben move as fast as their exhausted legs allow, stumbling over shattered rocks and drifting sand. The submarine sits like a steel beast, half buried in the seabed, its long shadow stretching toward them. A faint red flare still glows in the sky above, fading slowly with each passing minute. They reach the base of the submarine and find the captain lying outside, now blood pooling beneath him. His uniform is torn, his face pale, his breathing shallow. Cassie kneels beside him. "Sir, we're here. We made it." Now forces his eyes open. His voice is hoarse, barely audible. I'm glad glad. The pressure, the noise, something attacked the hull. I tried to fight, but Ben shakes his head, tears building. No, you said you had 3 spaces. You were waiting for us. Now gives a weak smile. I saved the sub for you kids. That was always the promise. His breath rattles. Your mother, she's strong. She'll find her way, but I don't have time left. Cassie squeezes his hand. Please don't die. Now doesn't answer. His chest rises slightly, then falls, and never rises again. Silence stretches across the dried seabed. Cassie wipes her eyes, whispering, thank you. Before they can decide what to do, a faint echo reaches them. Clicking, scraping, growing louder. The sound rises like a tide. Ben's eyes widen. Cassie, they're coming. They look back toward the canyon. Julia is fighting for her life. On the other side of the rock wall, Julia sees the swarm first. A massive wave of mutated crabs pouring across the valley floor, surging toward the canyon where she stands. Rocks crumble under their weight. Their claws scrape the stone walls as they climb over each other, like a living avalanche. Julia grabs the pistol, aims, and fires. One crab drops, then another, but the horde is enormous, unstoppable. She backs up, slipping on loose gravel. Her leg screams with pain from the cauterized wound. She knows she cannot outrun them. Her only chance is to climb. She grabs a sharp ledge and pulls herself upward. Her arms tremble. Her legs barely respond, but Cassie's voice echoes in her memory. We're not leaving you. Julia climbs harder. Her arms start to give out. Her fingers numb, slipping on dust-covered stone. Julia lunges one last time. Their hands lock together. Cassie pulls with everything she has. Ben sobs, hugging her side. There's no time to celebrate. More crabs flood into the canyon below, scaling the walls like a swarm of armored locusts. Julia forces herself to her feet. We need to get to the submarine now! They run across the jagged rock ridge, a trail of dust rising behind them, the ocean beginning to rise far in the distance. A distant wall of mist and blue creeping back toward land with terrifying speed. We're out of time, she whispers. They sprint toward the submarine. Ben reaches it first and climbs up the ladder, firing warning shots into the crowd of crabs swarming below. Mutated shells crack under bullets, but the swarm keeps coming, relentless. Enraged, Cassie helps Julia up the ladder. Crabs snap at her feet. She pulls herself higher, teeth gritted, sweat pouring down her face. Julia pushes the hatch shut with Cassie. It locks with a metallic clang. Then, a deep roar echoes across the seafloor. The ocean is coming back. Julia shouts, seatbelts, now! The 3 scramble into the narrow cockpit seats, strapping themselves in just as the returning ocean slams against the submarine. Water crashes over the hull, lifting the vessel violently. The submarine tilts, then rolls. A high-pitched tone fills the cabin, the same tone they heard the night of the storm. Cassie covers her ears. Ben screams. Julia braces against the seat, clutching her children's hands. Another wave smashes the submarine. They are thrown sideways. The cabin rattles violently as the ocean swallows everything, dragging the submarine across the newly forming sea. The pressure rises, steel groaning, lights flickering. Julia's mind flashes with visions. Tom, the yacht, the crabs, the storm, the stranger. Every moment of survival blurring together. Cassie vomits from the violent motion. Ben cries out as the submarine spins through the churning water. Then everything goes silent. The tone fades. The waves calm. Darkness surrounds them. For a long moment, Julia doesn't move. She barely breathes. Then she opens her eyes. Kids, are you okay? Cassie nods weakly. Ben sniffles, wiping his eyes. Are we alive? Julia unbuckles her seatbelt. I think we are. She twists the hatch lever. It opens. A soft beam of sunlight filters in. All 3 climb out and step onto solid ground. The submarine has crashed into the ruins of a coastal city. Twisted metal beams, flooded streets, shattered buildings leaning at wild angles. But among the destruction, there is life. Birds circle overhead. Green plants break through cracked pavement. The ocean glistens against the horizon. Restored. Julia puts her arm around her children. Despite everything, despite the nightmare they endured, they survived. And that's where our story ends. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.